We got to talk about Caliban. Now, I'm not going to mince words here. Caliban previously was at D rank, and he's not at D rank anymore. A really important note before we move on is that in the upcoming update, which is only a couple weeks away at this point, Caliban is getting a new augment, which might give him something more meaningful to do. God, I hope that that is the case. Currently, I am placing Caliban at a C rank, and I don't have a whole lot of hope that he is going to be much improved by that new augment.
Yeah, boy.
Nice.
Alright, what's up everybody? So, little tongue-in-cheek intro there, no shade at Brozime. Caliban was indeed a pretty bad frame many moons ago. However, nowadays, I actually think Caliban is kind of insane. I don't want to say he's OP, but he's pretty freaking good. And there's been multiple changes that have happened to him. And the thing that really sealed the deal was the augment he got kind of recently. I just think it is absolutely ridiculous. He also got, Prime, which is like, nice. Mostly a cosmetic upgrade, but it's still really nice. Now, build is very much built around his one augment. I think that adds a very unique way to play him. You could definitely play like a more generic build, where you don't use the augment. And that would probably be more focused on like weapon damage and like armor stripping enemies with his 4, and mostly using his companions for like shield regen and whatnot. But his one augment really opens up like a whole new way to play. So if we look at Caliban's abilities, first we have Razor Gyre. Now this genuinely, in my opinion, this was genuinely one of the worst abilities in all of Warframe. I genuinely believe that. It used to be. Now it's actually quite good. So Caliban has this Tau status effect, right? Now one of the interesting things with Caliban is the Tau status effect makes enemies more vulnerable to status damage, right? To other status effects. That's the key. Other. Now, the thing is that if you ignore the augment, Caliban's kit is all Tau damage. So, and Tau status effect. So, like, if you don't have another source of status application, just his base abilities alone can't actually take advantage of the Tau status effect. Now, that's where the augment comes in. Now, Razor Gyre, you do a little spinny. Normally, without the augment, this basically just is like a shield and health and whatever regen. It also, very, very importantly, refunds a portion of the energy cost. So we're kind of getting into like a little bit of Nidus territory here, where like Nidus is one also regens energy per enemy hit. So Sentient Wrath, this one is pretty basic. It's a pretty standard damage increase. The CC is like okay. I'm gonna be honest, like you don't really need to use this until very high level, as you'll see. So I'm going to include a gameplay segment at the end. You saw a little bit already, but I'll include a full survival mission at the end where you can see Caliban on like a normal steel path. I'm going to be honest, like just his 1 and 3 is way more than enough damage for normal steel path, even against armored enemies. Now, when you get into higher levels, then you're going to start amping that up, which his kit does have damage scaling. So, like, he has damage vulnerability from his 2. He can armor and shield strip from his 4. So he can really scale up his damage really, 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 really high. So, now getting to his 3, Lethal Progeny. So there's 3 different options of sentience you can summon. You've got your melee dudes, you got your range dudes, and you got your baby making shield dudes. you're going to want to stick to the ranged dudes with this build. So that's the Ortholists. They have ranged attacks, they inflict the Tau status effect, and they also synergize with the one augment, which I'll get into in a second. Fusion Strike, basically this is for armor strip, right? That's the main reason you're going to use this. So if we kind of just demo this really quick. So his 1, he spins around. His 2, he does this stomp, and it kind of spreads out in an AoE. 3, like I said, you're going to want to focus on the Ortholists. And his 4 is this laser thing, which strips enemy defenses. So that's kind of the general, kit for Caliban. Now let's get into the build. Now this is like, you can kind of use whatever weapon you want with this. You can kind of use whatever companion you want with this. I was using just a Panzervolpaphyla with like a pretty standard Panzervolpaphyla build. Most people run like pretty similar stuff these days. So one nice thing is like, you got your duplex bond, you got your viral quills, you're spreading a lot of status effects with this companion. I have a electricity based companion, which kind of just lots of electricity damage in this build. You could also very easily switch to this to heat or whatever you want by replacing this with burning claws or whatever element you're looking for. Now, as far as your focus school, honestly, it doesn't matter. It like literally doesn't matter. Like if you want some extra ability strength, you could use Matter Eye if you want. Otherwise, like he doesn't need energy. He already strips armor and stuff. Like maybe Unairu, because I'm not using Prime Surefooted on this build, so I would probably use Unairu. Honestly, I haven't even noticed though. So and then for Archon shards, I'm using 2 cast speed. This is an ability spam build. You really want Amber Archon shards with cast speed. You really want these. These ones are whatever. These are basically toxin protection. That's what those are. Because I don't have any kind of status cleanse in this build, so I don't want to just like instantly randomly die to toxin damage. So that's the only reason I have these blue shards. And honestly, there really wasn't anything else to put there except maybe some more strength. That's like the only thing. So getting into the build itself. Now, Caliban's, a lot of the damage you're doing in this build is coming from your Ortholists. So Summoner's Wrath is like a complete no-brainer. Your pet, whatever companion you're doing, companions can do so much damage now. So, this also synergizes with them. Preparation I really like because it helps you get off the ground running. I am using Blind Rage with no additional energy regen or... as you can see, like, I don't have Energize. I don't have any kind of efficiency on this build. But 0 energy problems at all. As long as there are enemies on your screen, you will never run out of energy. Okay? Now, one thing to keep in mind is Caliban's passive is basically a weaker version of Adaptation. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, why do I have Primed Redirection? The only reason I have this here is to maximize my shield gate invulnerability window. With Caliban's 1, you are going to be constantly regenning your shields. So that's why you don't need Brief Respite, you don't need Arcane Aegis, you don't need any kind of defensive mods. The reason I have Primed Redirection here is when you get to the level where your shields instantly break, you have 2.5 seconds to spin around and regen your shields, which is way more than enough time. The other thing that is really, 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 really important on this build is range. So you can see I have very high range. I have Stretch, Augur Reach, Overextended. I'm not even using... You can use Archon Stretch, but like I said, you have no energy issues with this build at all. So like it's kind of just a waste of capacity, to be honest. Little bit of duration, mostly for your summons, so they stay out a little longer. One nice thing they did with the rework was you summon all 3 at once, and it has a longer base duration. So even just primed continuity, and you're almost at, you're at 69 seconds. Nice. So you don't really need a lot of duration. Primed Flow, once again, is just, that's really my only energy economy mod. It's combined with Preparation. It's just to give you like a nice little bank of energy just in case, you need it. because your abilities do cost quite a bit because I'm using Blind Rage. Now, in terms of offsetting overextended, because you do want strength on this build. Now, I only have 139% base, so that's from Blind Rage. However, both of my arcanes are strength related. So I have Molt Augmented as you get kills, and this will literally be stacked up in like a minute or two, or, like a couple minutes, because depending on the mission density, of course. But this build is easily over 100 kills per minute. And then Arcane Kamisato is kind of a no-brainer. This build has a ton of summons and minions, and so it's a no-brainer to have this on here. Now, getting to the star of the show, finally, we have Razor Mortar. Now this is a really, 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 really good augment mod. This is completely changes how Caliban plays. So if you look at it, when you use Razor Gyre, it groups enemies together, and it causes your Ortholis to shoot at the enemies you grouped up, and it also gives them electricity damage and fire rate. So it perfectly fixes, not necessarily fixes, but it just enhances everything else in Caliban's kit. So Razor Gyre was already like much improved after the rework because it's giving you shields and health. And now when I say energy regen, one thing I glossed over a little bit is you have this energy refund per enemy, right? So it's actually kind of good to make this ability cost more energy, because when it costs more energy, you're getting more energy back. So as long as you're hitting like a couple enemies, which, I mean, if you're on Steel Path, like you're gonna be hitting multiple enemies at a time. That's also why my range is so high. So range is effectively energy economy in this build. You're gonna slurp enemies up because of Razor Mortar. You're gonna get your energy back. You're gonna get your shields back. You're gonna apply the Tau status effect, and then it's gonna supercharge your Ortholis, and they're gonna be like, and they're gonna be shooting these, electricity projectiles at them, which, as you'll see in the gameplay I'll show after this, it completely obliterates stuff on Steel Path. So let me get like Orc and Battle Group out here. Now this is like much higher level than you would normally have in Steel Path. Steel Path starts at like 100, 120, right? So let me get my Ortholis Bros out. So I mean, it's like very, very simple. You just group enemies up, and you kind of just keep doing that. The gameplay is basically you just keep running enemies all over the place. The really heavily armored guys, you just armor strip them and they die. And like I said, that's way higher level than normal Steel Path missions. And there's way more scaling that you can do in this build. And the reason why I think this build works into higher levels is, one, you have damage amp on your 2, and you can strip defenses. So like, it doesn't really matter. Oh yeah, also when you use your 4, it makes like a zone on the ground where your defenses are stripped. So like, all these enemies should just like implode. So, it just works. It really does, I'm Tom Howard. This just works. Todd Howard. So I give it a shot. Like, honestly, I was so surprised. Also, your sentience, like, regen your shields and stuff, if that's not enough. So the only way you're gonna die is if your health gets one shot by a toxin proc. That's basically it. You are constantly regenerating shields. You're constantly getting energy back. You have damage amp. You have defense strip. Like, you can kind of use whatever the hell weapon you want. You don't really need to use your weapon, to be honest. So I'm gonna let a mission play after this, so you can get a glimpse of kind of how the gameplay works. But it's you summon in your bros, you just start spinning, and you don't stop spinning. The one thing, please use casting speed. Honestly, I might even replace some of those blue shards with more cast speed shards, because that just makes the whole build feel so much better, especially as 4. It has a pretty long cast time if you don't use some kind of cast speed. So, and you don't want to waste a mod slot on natural talent, right? So I think the Amber Archon shards are the way to go. All that being said, I definitely don't think Caliban is a D or a C tier frame. I think he's pretty freaking good, actually. It's almost like a shield based version of a Naros that actually just does way more damage. And has way better scaling because a Naros has his sandstorm that sucks enemies in too. So there's no lack of damage with this build. Energy is basically infinite as long as you're hitting enemies. Here, I can actually show that really quick. I didn't focus on that the first time. So I've got about half energy, right? So, you just armor strip, and then, whoop, energy's back. Woo! And now you're all dead. There you go. That's Caliban with the augment after the rework. So there you go. Give him a shot. I personally think he's really fun now. It's almost like an Atlas kind of thing where you're just like spamming one ability and everything is dying around you, and it's very relaxing, it's very relaxing. And I think his prime looks pretty cool, honestly. And his deluxe, I think it's a deluxe, the one Skinny got, like the armor one, that one's pretty cool too. So give him a shot. Let me know if you like him in the comments. I think he's very underrated. So thanks for watching. Really appreciate it as always. See you next time.
Get ready for a capsule. Delivered a life support capsule to the area. Activating it will buy you more time. Prepare for life support. Another life support capsule. successful start. When you are ready, go to extraction.
Your will was greater. This is good.